everybody, hope you're doing well and welcome back to a new video. In today's video I'm going to be doing my July wrap up. July was quite a good month. I read 14 books in total and I had one DNF at 60%. So I read quite a lot of it, but I just couldn't read the rest of it.
Once again, I say this every single time I do a wrap up, that I will try and get through it quick, but usually I just go on and on and on. But I haven't got any charge on my laptop at the moment, so I can't easily get to my review. So I'm going to have to go off of my head. I do have a little thing here which is really messy, because I listen to some audiobooks just so I know where they're placed and so I know the star rating of the books I read this month.
But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. The first book I read is Terrific Mother by Laurie Moore. This is a short little dinky story. I ended up giving this 4.5 stars. I really enjoyed this. It basically followed Adrienne, and she accidentally kills a baby while she's at a party, and this it happens in the span of one paragraph, and I kind of love that because it kind of I like why Moore did that, because it shows how these big life affirming events can just happen in like the spur of the moment, and from this killing the baby by accident, she goes into a depression for about 7 months, and then and she gets married on the whim, and then she goes to a resort conferencey thing in the Italian Alps with her new husband. And while she's there, she sort of falls and becomes infatuated with a female, a masseur, a massager person. And there's sort of dining room scenes with these different specialists that are at the compound place, and yeah, so whilst you might think it's a bit macabre or a bit it doesn't sound that nice, obviously it starts with her murdering a baby but by accident, but it is not at all. This is so funny. It's so naturally witty and naturally funny. Nothing is forced. It is so good. I really love this. I read it in 2 sittings. I could have read it in one, but it was because it was 3 a.m. when I was reading it, and yeah, and then I just finished it in the second time. Yeah, I would so recommend this. The only thing is that I kind of wish it was longer, but overall I really enjoyed this, and I would like to read some more by Laurie Moore. It also has some feminist messages as well, about how when women get to a certain age, there's this expectation of when you're gonna have a baby, when you're gonna get married, and that sort of notion as well, but it's just sort of touched on. It's not that much explained, but recommend totes. Next up we have got NP by Banana Yoshimoto. This is translated from the Japanese by Anne Sheriff. I ended up giving this 3 stars. When I got this book, I immediately wanted to read it straight away. I got it in June, but because there was nothing explicitly queer about it, I couldn't read it until the end of July, or until the end of June. It was a disappointment for me, in all honesty. That isn't because I had high expectations. It's more that as I was reading it, I didn't know where it was going or why it was going the ways it was going. It basically, it's hard to explain as well. So there's a book called NP, which is it's sort of like a book in a book, but basically a writer he wrote the 89th story in a collection of stories, and then after completing that last one, he died by suicide. And then 3 other people have also died by suicide after translating that final story from English into Japanese, even though he is a Japanese author, but he was living in America when he was writing. And the main character of this, totally forgot her name, it doesn't say on the back now. Yeah, I can't remember, sorry. But she was the girlfriend of the last like victim sort of the like the curse, in a way, like he had died by suicide. And she is sort of like roped into the story, and she was doing some like of the translations as well, and she gets to know the twin children of the author and another member of the family, and I can't really reveal her relationship because it's a spoiler and stuff, and lots happens, and sort of also kind of a lot doesn't happen as well. It's sort of more character interactions and things. It's quite hard to explain. It's a weird book. I like the writing. I definitely do like Yoshimoto's writing style. It's very like ethereal and like dreamlike. It's hard to explain. It's something quite different. I do really enjoy it, but I didn't like the story. I didn't really like where it was going or why it was going the way the places it was going to. I think for some reason I've been reading quite a lot of like suicide prominent like literature, especially from East Asia, and I do get that suicide has a different like place in like East Asian like countries and culture than sort of like more Western ideologies and ideas about it. But I do feel that the way certain characters and the whole message around the notion was quite blasé, and it wasn't really handled that good or with that much sophistication, or with like it, I just don't think it was handled that good. Also the mentions of like incest was just very uncomfortable, and the way that some of the characters try to justify and romanticize some things as well was just very not very nice to read. I just couldn't get on board with it. So yeah, I did quite like the ending, but overall I didn't really like it, but there is some redeeming qualities. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe on like a second read or something, I might be able to like piece some things together a bit better, and maybe get a bit more out of it. But it definitely was quite a bit of a disappointment, in all honesty. So yeah, that was that one. But thirdly, we come right up with a massive banger of a book, and that is Maurice by E.M. Forrester. 5 stars, instant 5 stars. I have a whole review video which you can check up there if you want to, so I'm not going to talk too much about it because you can check all in there. But basically it's a classic. It was written in like 1914, I believe, I'm not too sure, around then, but it wasn't published until a year after Forrester's death in 1976, which is such a shame, because I know it would have changed so much of like queer literature, like, and probably like a lot of like politics and stuff as well if it had been published earlier. But with hindsight, what can you do? But this book is, I absolutely adored it. It follows Maurice as he sort of like comes of age, understands his sexuality, that he is a gay man, and his 2 like relationships with his societal equal in the like Cambridge or Oxford, I'm not sure, fellow like student Clive Durham, and then later with the lower class Alex Scudder, and these two like relationships, queer relationships, and just a lot like happens and stuff as well in it. I really loved this. I love the story arc. I really like the characters. They're very real. It had an element of modernity to it that just, it felt like it could have been something written like a couple years ago. I absolutely adored it. And would so recommend it. It is such an accessible classic. If you want to get into classics, I would totally recommend this. There's like extremely little like jargony words or anything. Like I feel like I said, it is very modern feeling. And yeah, really loved it. It's a shame that I read this month, because this was such a shoe-in for probably one of the top 2 of the month, but I think at this current moment it has just been beaten out. But when I come to the end of the year, when I actually do my book bracket and I do decide the best 2, things might change when I look back on things. But at the moment it has just been edged out by, no, not yet, we're gonna go into it now, but anyway, the next book I read, listened to, was The Comfort Book by Matt Haig. I gave this 4.5 stars. I listened to this audibly whilst I was like on like the bus journey, on like a journey place. I quite like this. It's sort of like part memoir, part self-help, part non-fiction. It has like some like quotes, like a recipe as well. And it's just all on like the idea of like comfort, I guess. Quite a lot of like the like mental health things I already sort of knew, I guess, in some essence, but I did still like them, and I still got some like tips and advice out of it, because I am someone that does struggle with my own mental health. But I think what I did really like was just sort of like the formatting and how, and just how it's all sort of like jumbled together, I guess, and like the personal anecdotes from Haig himself, that was my favourite parts. I think maybe it was probably something better to have read like physically, and maybe to have gone back to multiple times, or like little chunks, instead of listening to it all in one go. But on the whole, it was an enjoyable read, and I would recommend it. So yeah, that was The Comfort Book. It was a comfort. This book was really good, and I knew I was going to love it. That is In the Absence of Men by Philippe Besson, translated by Frank Wynne from the French. 5 stars. I'm going to do a whole reading like review on this, which I should link up there if I remember to go back. But I really enjoyed this. As I've probably said millions of times on my channel now, last year my favourite book of the year was Lie With Me by Philippe Besson, but only 2 of his books have been translated into English, and I do not know French, so there's a problem if I want to read more by him. So I tried to pace myself with getting to this, but I knew I wanted to read this in July. It was just something I really wanted to read. I wanted to read it in June originally, but I didn't get to it, so I really wanted to get to it in July. This follows Vincent in 1916's Paris, drawn the Great War. It's split into 3 books. I don't think that's the most apt term, considering the length of the book, the single book, and each part. But anyway, the first part is Vincent getting to know Marcel. It's like it's a week in his life. He gets to know Marcel. It's extremely likely it's Marcel Proust, and they sort of like meet in like the like soirees in Paris and like the galleries and all these like fineries and stuff. And also he begins a relationship, a sexual relationship, with the soldier son of his family's like maid's son. Yeah, basically, like his family maid's her son has come back from the front for like a week, and they have a relationship, and that's like a thing. And it's clear that these two like relationships, one one sort of like more physical and one like more like mental and, you know, about the mind, I guess, I don't know, are gonna have an impact on Vincent's life going forward. And the second part is letters between Vincent and Marcel and Vincent and Arthur whilst the parties are away from each other. And then the third part is sort of like a conversation between Vincent and Blanche, who is Arthur's mum, who we don't really like see much throughout the rest of the book, and that part is just exceptional. So yeah, so once again, Besson's writing is just exquisite. He must do so many rounds of editing because everything he writes is just pinpoint, razor sharp. It's just it has so much meaning in like the least possible words, and it is just an absolute joy to read. It is exceptional. It's not as good as Lie With Me. I think because that one had a lot more better about like what it is about like the queer experience. This does still have some of those elements and some like relatability, but just not to the same extent. But yeah, I would still so recommend this. And in the meantime, can someone please translate some more of his books, please? Thank you. So yeah, then next was my DNF. I listened to 60% of A Lot by Brian Washington. I was listening to this like on a journey again. I only had about 2.5 hours left, so I could have listened to the rest, but I really couldn't. I don't want to be rude, but I hated this book. I really hated it. I think me giving it 2 stars is extremely generous. Like, this is the most generous I've ever been with my like ratings ever. That is partly because when I DNF, I can't give it less than 2 stars, because I just don't feel comfortable, because obviously I didn't finish it. But also because I think a lot of work went into it, and the desire was there, and it just, the execution was just, for me personally, really, it didn't pan out well.
Basically, it's hard to explain as well, the format and the plot. There's like one main story, and then there's like little mini stories as well. The one main story is sort of like split up into basically parts, I guess, and in each part there are like about 10 sort of chapters and about that, and they chronicle the main character. I forgot his name, I don't really care, to be honest, and his brother is like abusive for some reason. I have no idea why, it's not said, and he lives with his parents, and his dad is having an affair. They're of like Latino descent, living in Houston, and just sort of things happen in like these different parts. The one single thing I liked about this, that story, and basically the whole book, was the parts about this main character like understanding and coming to terms with his sexuality. But that being said, I still don't think it was handled that well, or it just wasn't, I just didn't enjoy it either. But anyway, that's sort of one thing. And then in between these parts, there's sort of like a mini story about another character that lives in The Lot, which is sort of like a multicultural, sort of like impoverished region of Houston that is struggling with quite a lot of like societal issues. And they have like a main character of that story, and that's basically sort of what happens. Yeah, so that's sort of the thing. What I think is my main problem is that the format is just, it was all wrong. I think Washington should have just stuck to either just a straight short story collection, or just one whole novel, and then just these other characters in it or something as well. I think it would have been so much more better, because it's sort of trying to merge both, and he doesn't get either of them right, and they're just it's just a mess, in my opinion. And he glances over things that, like, the pacing's also really off, like things that I like wanted to know about, or like things that I think was like important is just glanced over or said like in a sentence, and like important events and things like it's just, they don't get talked about, and then like lingers on other things that aren't like important to the story or anything. So yeah, I just don't think it worked. Would have I read it if it was a proper novel, like just the main story? I don't think so either, or I might have DNF'd it as well, because I didn't like the story arc. I didn't like where it was going. I didn't like the characters. We meant to sympathize with them and like empathize and like understand them, but I couldn't, like, because of the pacing and everything about it, I couldn't understand the characters. I couldn't realize them. I couldn't like see them. I just couldn't at all. Also, I think a lot, like so much that happens just is so unrealistic, and obviously like some of the things, like there's a story about like a chupacabra and stuff, like obviously that's unrealistic, but there's like things that just don't add up. Like there's one story where like someone's like having an affair, and all like basically there's a white guy and he's having an affair with a Caribbean woman who's married, and all the like the non-white people that are mostly in the like the lot are all like a very vitriol like towards a relationship and stuff, but spoiler alert, the woman's husband murders the white man, and they're all like, well, he had it coming. And I was like, I mean, he's still like a person, still like oh, come on. And they're all like, they're all having the other guy's back, and then like a week later they throw the dead person's, like him, awake, and they're all like, oh well, at the end of the day he was one of us. Like the math ain't mathing, like things aren't adding up.
So yeah, I really didn't like this. Yeah, 2 stars, extremely generous. In all honesty, it is like a 1 star. I do want to read Memorial by Brian Washington that I've got to read still, but I would really not recommend a lot at all. But for some people it might be enjoyable, I don't know. But yeah, that was my opinion, and that's just my opinion, so yeah. But after that, we came back with a banger of a book, the best non-fiction I've ever read, one of the best books of the year so far. I absolutely love this. I have a whole review on it, and that is Cheer the F Up by Jack Rook. Read and review linked up there, so I'm not going to talk too much about this. It's sort of like part memoir, part self-help. I'm just going to say, because I know this is getting long already, so I'm just going to say check that video out and read this book, because this book is exceptional. It is just so good. It is so funny. It is emotional. I loved this person like I loved like a fictional character, and I have never had that experience with a non-fiction book before. It just was so great, and yeah, just the best non-fiction I've ever read. Amazing, not like anything else, just it's so vital and just totally made up for that one I just read, sort of. So yeah, read this book now. Go out and read this book, please. I beg of you to read this book. I will not shut up about it. Read this book. Thank you. Then I've got 3 in a row that I'm gonna quickly talk about, that I'm just gonna direct you to a video up there reading for Feminist Literature, which also includes this one, which I'll talk about a little bit after, because I read some in between. But for some reason I just thought I would read some feminist lit, and yeah, this was the ones I read. So I read This Little Family by Inez Bayard, translated from the French by Adrienne Hunter. I ended up giving this 3.75 stars. If you want to know more about these books, check that video, so I'm not going to talk too much about it. But basically it's about the main character, Marie. It basically starts basically at the end with her, like, I'm not gonna say what that is because well, you can see if you pick up the book and read the back or check out the first page. Basically, it starts with the end, but then it goes back about 2 years, and she deals with a rape, and this heavily impacts her like mental state, and she sort of like creates like a web of lies, and it just grows out of control. But what I think what Bayard does so great in this book is how she talks about how like these like unspoken rules that like women are just expected to follow and just like do, just to like make sure that the cogs keep rolling in society and like marriages and everything. It's very like eye-opening, and whilst I didn't, there's something I didn't like, I do still think its commentary on this sort of like role of women was very, very good, and I would recommend this little like this thriller book, and I would love to read something else by this author, so yeah, would recommend that little translated thriller. Then I read We Should All Be Feminists by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I hope I pronounced that name right. This is another little dinky one. This is sort of like a manifesto-ish thing about why we should all be feminists, and proudly so, and why we should call ourselves feminists. It's about her acknowledging the place that women and men as well have in society, contemporary society. It places Nigeria at the focus, which I think was quite good because a lot of feminist literature is from more like Western viewpoints, so something from Nigeria was quite good to read in my opinion. And I think what is so good about it is how she says that how we should call ourselves feminists, and that is the main thing, because it acknowledges the fact that it is women that are being treated unfairly, and it's femininity, and by acknowledging that, that is how we're gonna like get a solution to the problem. And yeah, I would really recommend this little dinky one, just enjoyable little read. Yeah. And then I read I Hope This Finds You Well. This is poems by Kate Bear. I also gave this 4.5 stars. In this poetry collection, basically she takes like different like emails or like unsolicited advice, just like messages, all just like different things like that, and she uses erasure to create poems out of it, like that, for example. Most of them are sort of like negative remarks and comments and like advice, and instead she uses it to create like positivity, and it's sort of like a flex because she's turning hate into love, and I just think that's just such like a good message and a good way to use her talent. Yeah, I really enjoyed this, and I would love to read other things by Bear. Yeah, I just think it's just so innovative, and I've never read anything like it. And yeah, would so recommend this collection. Then I listened to Old Woman with the Knife by Gu Byung-mo, translated from the Korean by Chi Young Kim. I gave this 3.5 stars. This story is about I forgot her name now. It's like Hacksaw or something. I can't remember. But basically, there's this old woman in Korea who is like an assassin, and she's like getting to the end of like her like time, I guess, as being an assassin. But it's quite difficult for an assassin to like retire because like killing is sort of like her fix. But the managing people and this other like assassin, like his new guy called Bullfrog or Bullfight, sort of like trying to push her out, But basically, so she used to be really good back in the day, but recently she's sort of like been making a few mistakes, and she makes like one quite bad error, which pushes her to Dr. I want to say Kim, but I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember with my notes. But anyway, and he is so adorable. Oh my god, and his family as well. So she's trying to understand, like, sort of like there's sort of like been some sabotage and stuff, and sort of like trying to like oust her. So that is sort of like the plot, and obviously other things happen as well. But it's sort of like a mystery crimey thing. Yeah, I didn't mind this. I think it wasn't too bad. It's not really like my type of genre. I just thought I'd listen to it because I wanted to. It was like one of the only like translated books that are on BorrowBox, which I've been listening to a lot recently because I've just like been enjoying audiobooks a lot more recently, and I just wanted to try it out. But yeah, I didn't mind it. I think what I liked quite a lot was sort of like Byung Mo's like commentary on sort of like how society views like the elderly and like aging population, especially in regards to like the working environment, specifically in Korea. I just think that was like quite interesting. And yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Yeah, I gave that 3.5 stars. I think it was just in general quite like a decent read. Nothing amazing and nothing too bad. So yeah, just quite in the middle. Yep. Then I listened to Ruby Through Jungle by Rita Mae Brown. In my most recent vlog video, I have like a whole review on it, which you can check up there. If I can put it in. I think I've actually reached my limit now, but anyway, whatever. I gave this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this. Basically it's sort of like a coming of age novel. It's sort of like talked about as like one of like the early like lesbian literature, or like a lesbian novel. It basically follows the main character Molly from like 10 to about 25, so definitely like a time when we're developing and changing, and we're becoming who we are, like who we really are inside, and coming like of age. I definitely had some problems in it, which I do explain in the video, my whole review. But overall I think it was definitely quite good, and very good like for the time in like the 70s, when like lesbian and like queer women wasn't like represented in literature like much at all, and it set a path for more like correct like lesbian like literature to follow, which I think is quite good. I really liked Molly. It's not always, she is quite a flawed character, but she is quite real, and she's very witty and funny, and I just love the fact that like some homophobes like might have just picked this up, and like they like can be laughing at her at the beginning, but then later on they're like reading it and they're like, oh, like she's doing some like hanky panky with women, and they're like, I was just laughing at her. Maybe lesbians aren't too bad, but like they still probably wouldn't think that, but whatever. So yeah, I really enjoyed it, and yeah, I would so recommend it. Yeah, cool book. Then I read this in my feminist literature, Women That Only Are Pretty by The Small Editions by Florence Given. I gave this 4 stars. I think there's not really that much new in it, but I do like the way that she tailored things to herself and made it personal. Just yeah, I don't really have that much like anything to add specifically on it. I'm glad I read it, and there's some like definitely things I learned about it. In my review video, like I said, I do list like what she actually talks about in this book, yeah, I did quite like it, and I would recommend it still. So yeah, that was that book. And then penultimately, I read Colourful by Ito Mori, translated from the Japanese by Jocelyn Allen. It follows like a soul that has been saved from being kicked out of the cycle of rebirth after committing like a crime, or like a sin, basically, like a mistake. So basically he's won the lottery, or they've won the lottery, and instead they've been given the chance to go into the body of the 14-year-old, I've totally forgot his name, Makoto Kobayashi, who has recently died by suicide. And in doing so, they get the chance to like understand what their mistake was in their previous life, and then they can get back into the cycle of rebirth. They go into Makoto's body, and they understand how like the reasons why he decided to had these mental health problems and decided to end his life in the first place, and sort of like the misunderstandings, but he sort of like decides to do things on his own terms this time round, and understands sort of like how to live like life better. And it is quite although there is quite a lot of sadness and negativity, I guess, in the book, there is also an equal amount of optimism and like looking forward and niceties as well. And I think of the recent books from East Asia that I've read, with suicide being a prominent motif, this has been one of the better representations, and with better messages. And I do like how it all comes together in the end, and it's a little bit of like, oh, I didn't see that. But yeah, I did quite like this book. And we're giving it 4 stars. I think I said that, yeah. Not everything was the best. There's some things about like some of the things they did that I wasn't too keen on, because there was a little bit like, oh, I'm just in the body for the sake of like doing this thing, I'm not actually here for it. But over time they sort of got to understand that like they was living more like better, and like making like better decisions, and I did quite like it, and I would so recommend this. And yeah, it was an enjoyable read. But yeah, like I said, there is some like trigger warning topics included in this book, and quite a lot of the ones I have read throughout. So if you do want to see them, check my StoryGraph or Goodreads, where I list it at the top of my review, just in case that is a issue before going into reading some of these books. And finally, I listened to Hackseed by Margaret Atwood. Ended up giving this 4 stars. I really enjoyed this, actually. I have never read The Tempest by Shakespeare. I have no desire to read it. I probably will never read it. I don't really like sort of like Shakespeare, things like that. It's not me at all. But I kind of really like this because it was a contemporary spin on it, and it was a retelling of The Tempest, like I said. Basically, the story is that we follow Felix, who used to be the artistic director of like a theatre thing or something like that, like a something. But his like assistant orchestrates a coup and he gets ousted, so instead he's basically left with like nothing, and all he has is the ghost / hallucination of his recently deceased daughter. Basically, this is a similar story, like in a way, to the main character in The Tempest, Prospero, who is only left with his daughter, his young daughter. But anyway, so some time goes on, and Felix and the people that ousted him are gonna be coming to watch a show that he is putting on, and he's going to be able to get his revenge again, maybe. And the crew and the cast are going to be able to help him with the revenge. And do you know why it's going to be quite beneficial for him this time round? Because the crew and the cast are all prisoners, because he has taken a job teaching like English to prisoners, and every year he puts on a play by Shakespeare with them as the cast, and this year he's gonna obviously do The Tempest with these people coming to watch it, and yeah, so things happen and he sort of like gets like obsessed with revenge a little bit, like I believe Prospero does in the actual story, and other things happen and things, and yeah, I kind of really like this. I liked what I think I liked the most was how the setting of a prison, and because it allows for like discussions both in the story and outside about the role and the importance of like leisure-based activities within such environments, about how like should prisoners just like be there to serve punishment and like retribution, or should they be able to like reinvigorate their mind and their creativity and their like emotional aspects and things. And like I would argue the latter, and what I think is important is that the prisoners that he works with, they're there for like crimes that that a lot of people could easily do and like get put prison for. It's not like serial killers or like massive crimes, it's like littler things, so there's sort of like a relatability to them. And what I also, another thing I really liked is how Felix gets the prisoners to like analyze the characters within the story that they're going to put forward, and they all want to play Caliban, who is the main baddie of The Tempest, which I think is quite like interesting, because obviously I think as prisoners and as people that have had quite like harsh upbringings and like come from like bad circumstances and stuff, they've been viewed as bad from the outside world, and just sort of like humanized as characters very like interesting ways. It was just very, 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 very good, like done by Atwood. Additionally, the way Atwood via Felix makes the prisoners make up like further like future stories for the characters in The Tempest, I think is quite good about, and that how they use like current contemporary issues like climate change is quite interesting. And they also bring into like more like contemporary ideas about like rap to express their like thoughts, and the ways that like the characters might like portray themselves in the contemporary setting. So yeah, overall I think this was really like a very, very good book. I only gave it 4 stars because I wasn't really like, it's not my genre or like that I care that much about, but I do like, I would really recommend it. And I think Atwood is just very good at telling a story and making very quite like nuanced and realized characters. And already I know I have gone over the 40-minute mark, but whatever, what can I do? Every time I say it I'm going to do a short one, but I don't. Whatever, but anyway, we've come to the end of my wrap up. I hope you've enjoyed learning about these books I read this month. If any of them take your fancy, I would love to hear your thoughts on them. And be sure to come back soon for a new video. Hope you have a nice morning, night or evening or wherever you are in the world, and I shall see you very, very soon. Bye.